I think it's important to understand what parts of the world and what parts of what we have we are attributing to ourselves. And when I say what we have, I really am just saying that I feel like a lot of times in life we attribute to self that which should not be. A lot of times a lot of things are negative, and a lot of times we take that negativity personally as if it's part of us, or as if some type of worldly projection is also a representation of us, when it's actually vice versa, in my opinion. I think that our power has never been in what we hold, but what we have. And what I mean by that is, I feel like a lot of us are holding on to certain ideas, certain things, certain attributes, certain characteristics, and certain things in order to make us feel valid in who we are. And my main realization is that you don't have to have, or you don't have to hold on to anything in order to be valid in who you are. I think that everything we have is already sufficient, and that's also important in sort of, I guess, the strength and the meaning of each of those words. Because I feel like holding on to stuff sort of implies that if we were to let go, if we were to allow ourselves to exist without, I guess, any conscious attention or holding on to some sort of attribute, some sort of something, that it would leave us. And I don't think that's true in the slightest, at least to the degree that we allow it to happen. I think it's important to sort of justify and, I guess, understand what parts of you actually have. And if you want something to be in your possession, or you want something to be something you have, then allow it to be part of your character. I feel like any type of positivity or any type of, I guess, good attribute that I have within myself that I guess didn't have years before is only present in me because I allowed it to be. I feel like you have to allow positivity just as much as you allow negativity to go through you. And that's why I feel like it's important to allow. The whole concept of, I guess, not forcing is sort of important in, I guess, a progression of who you are. I feel like it's important to realize that you can't really force anything, especially not anything external. I feel like, of course, your energy goes where your attention flows, but I feel like that sort of intention and that sort of conscious effort towards anything is not about control, it's about influence. And I think the only thing that we can really control in a real sense is ourselves. And that's why I feel like it's important to sort of grasp your own definition and understand that it's sort of dictated by who you think you are, not necessarily how the world thinks you are. At the end of the day, it's always about your own reaction and how you feel about what you do that gives it the strength to keep going. And that's why I feel like it's important to sort of enjoy who you are, regardless, and secure it with what you do. Do things that you feel like are befitting of that feeling in order to make it part of your possession or part of who you are. Because I feel like expression is the easiest teacher, and it's the sort of easiest way to see the fruits of our own labor when it comes to our growth. I feel like any self has to be expressed, and we have to take some time to express ourselves to ourselves. I feel like recently I was sort of in a rut of like being grateful for everything outside of me. And that's not a bad thing at all, but I feel like it's important to also count yourself as something you're grateful for. Your very existence is what allows you to be grateful for everything else. And I feel like that is sort of the fundamental building block to, I guess, gratitude for just being alive, and also having that aspect of yourself that you can appreciate regardless of what you do. And I feel like that's where that self-love without condition comes in, because there's no point in not loving yourself regardless. And when it comes back to, I guess, looking into the world, or I guess in an external sense, attributing to self that which is not you, I feel like it's important to sort of differentiate, again, what you're holding on to and what you have. I feel like what we have in a real sense is what we've allowed ourselves to believe is part of our character. And in that same way, whatever we believe is part of our character in turn becomes part of it. And I'm not saying that in the sense that who we are is ingenuine, but I'm saying our genuineness is only in reference to how much we think something is inherent to who we are. And it's not necessarily in reference to other people, this is that and other, because people change. I think it's important to realize that you're the biggest subject to your own change compared to anything in the world. Of course, things in the external sense change, things have seasons, but our seasons are much more vast and much more frequent. I find that who we are is not necessarily something that's ever the same. And of course, I don't mean that in a super grand sense, but in a minute sense. I feel like each and every single thing that we encounter, everything that we come across, in each and every, I guess, situation that we're conscious enough to make a choice in also changes us. And saying that your power isn't in what you hold, but what you have, is also saying that the way you interact with the world is sort of an internal thing. It's about what you're allowing to be part of you, regardless of what else is out here. Because your attributes and yourself and your love and your care and whatever you want to be within yourself has to be placed by you. I think that, my life isn't necessarily filled with affection and intimacy and love and positivity because it's just present in the world, because it's always present in the world. There's always that aspect of it, but I think it's because I'm placing it there myself, or I'm placing myself in, I guess, a conscious enough position to perceive it. And that's I guess, what I have. It's not necessarily something I feel like I have to hold on to, because I feel like letting go is always what makes it stay. It's the very premise of letting go that makes it stay. It's sort of saying that regardless of what I do, or regardless of what type of position, what type of circumstance, event, anything that I come across, it makes it part. Not only because I'm not holding on to it, but because I believe it's inherent to who I am. And that's why I feel like it's also important to break the habit of being yourself. And that's not to say be ingenuine to yourself, but be genuine to your truest self. I feel like your comfort with yourself is only in reference to how much of yourself you allow to grow, how much space you give yourself within to grow within. And I feel like a lot of times it's not necessarily us stopping ourselves from growing intentionally, but thinking that there's no more room to grow, thinking that there's some type of journey that's over. And I always think that he who thinks the journey is over is the one that's truly lost, because our growth is only in reference to us, because we cannot compete where we don't compare. And I feel like we compare ourselves a lot to things outside of us and other possessions and other things that people hold on to. And one thing I feel like we shouldn't have to hold on to is ourselves, because we're always here. You're always going to be here as well. As long as you're alive, you're going to be here. And that's why I feel like it's important to love whoever you're here with, namely yourself. Because as long as you have yourself, you have somebody. And I think that I wouldn't even say a lot of my growth, but a good amount of my enjoyment in life is not necessarily because of external things, but because of the relationship I have with myself. Everything in the world doesn't always have to be good, and it's not always going to be good, because everything is always in reference to another thing when it comes to good and bad. And, something's always going to be worse than something else. But I think it's important when it comes to yourself to not live in reference, because who you are is always going to be good as long as you posit that you are. The references to yourself that only exist because you allow them to. And I'm not saying that in a crazy sense to say that, if I do a bunch of bad stuff, that I'm not a bad person because I think I'm good. Of course, there's an honesty aspect to it. But I'm talking about in terms of comfort with yourself and comfort with your true idea of who you think you are. I think it's important to sort of validate that which you want to be. Give your energy to something that you want to sort of develop, because you can't hate yourself into being a better person. I feel like you have to funnel yourself with the love that you want to be present in your life to have it be present in your life. I feel like we don't take that, I guess, hands-on role when it comes to our own enjoyment and our own personal freedom. And I feel like that's sort of what sets us back sometimes, because we feel like sort of we have to wait for certain things to line up in order for us to be in line. And I don't think that's true in the slightest. I think it's always been about how present you can be with your own idea, how present you can be with yourself in order to realize those things that you need to change in order to not necessarily be better, but to realize how much better you can be. I don't feel like we need to do anything. You don't need to change. You don't need to do this, that, and the other. But if you have any desire to grow or any desire to, I guess, become a better person, I don't think it's about solely just saying, oh, I'm not good enough now, but giving yourself what you need in order to get to that better point. It's never been about getting to the end goal, but taking your steps, making each and every step intimate enough to place affection within it. So whenever you get to that end goal, you're carrying all that affection that you've brought with yourself. And I feel like that's another important aspect of it too. And I guess I can speak to that a little bit more in detail because at the time where I'm making this, I recently just hit 500,000 subs. So thank you all for that. Really, genuinely, and deeply. My heart is very full, but I feel like it's about giving yourself that validation to keep on going regardless. Understanding that how you are internally and how you want things to be won't always be directly represented within the world as soon as you want them. And that's why I feel like it's also about not holding on to your expectation. Not even holding on to any idea of what you I guess think is necessary in order to feel like whatever. I feel like I already had that gratitude for that which I wanted to be present in my world, and that allowed me to feel like, I wouldn't say deserving, but right in the place that I'm in. Understanding that whatever effort, whatever labors you want to put into, I guess, your goals, dreams, and aspirations have to be matched with the positivity, the support that you give yourself. Because I feel like a lot of us are strenuous on ourselves. We put ourselves under a lot of stress when it comes to whatever we want to do. And in that way, this simple acquisition or simple thought of our goal or whatever is inherent to that becomes stressful because we're placing that within it. And I try my best in every situation to place some type of positivity within it, because at the end of the day, I have to experience that situation. And if you're in any type of control or any type of influence on a situation, I feel like you should make it not necessarily for your benefit, but for your benefit. Not in a narcissistic way, but in a realizing that, your experience is always going to be catered to you. And in saying your power isn't in what you hold, but what you have, I'm saying that you have to have some type of understanding and have to have some type of, I guess, relationship with yourself where you're giving yourself the attributes that you need in order to traverse these certain situations. Like if I constantly think of whatever I have to do is some type of grand negative thing, then of course I'm going to experience negativity within those things. And of course, if I feel like that thing, which I'm putting negativity into, if I feel like that thing is inherent to me, or if I feel like it's part of my goal or part of what I want to do and it's part of myself and something I'm holding on to, then I'm going to hold on to the negativity that's inspired by that action. And that's why I feel like it's important to sort of let go of that as well. We have to sort of learn how to desire without expectation. And I know that's pretty grand to say, but I feel like any type of personal freedom is always going to be about how much you don't expect. I feel like expectation is always the killer of freedom because you expect a certain thing to be a certain way, and in that way, you're bound by that event. Desiring without expectation isn't just about like not really wanting anything. Of course, you can want something very intently and very deeply, but I think the no expectation part is really just about realizing that you don't have to have that thing in order to be good. You don't have to have this thing in order to feel good about who you are. And I'm not saying that in the sense that like you don't have to do anything, don't do anything, be lazy. I'm saying the love you have for yourself is not something that has to be conditional. The affection that you want to place within your life isn't within the conditions that you put on it, but simply in the restrictions that you put on yourself. I feel like that's why I'm saying your growth is only in reference to you, because at the end of the day, we can try to look for growth in the outside world. We can try to look for growth in this situation, that situation. But if we're not present enough to perceive it, and if we're not present enough to look within, then the only thing we're referencing is external circumstance. And I feel like if all we are is a reaction to the external world, then we just have to focus on being more internally sound. Because I feel like those are directly related. I feel like in a lot of ways, everything is internal. You interact with the world so much on an external level that sometimes it gets hard to remember that you have to validate who you are inside as well as your external expression. I feel like your embodiment is just as important as how you express it. Because at the end of the day, if you can't express yourself to yourself, or you don't have any understanding of who you are internally, then all you're going to do is be based on that which is outside of you. And then you're going to get into a loop, I feel, of holding on to certain things, certain items, certain materials, certain people, certain ideas, in order to be you. And I think that's why it's important to sort of give to yourself in those moments, and give to yourself, I guess, at all times, in order to realize that your power has never been in what you hold on to, but what you have within yourself inherently. And what you have inside yourself inherently is only, I guess, based on what you think, what you allow to be part of you. And of course, there are parts of people that I feel like they come set as stone, but I feel like there are a lot of things that are acquired through your patience and perseverance with the world. And those things in turn become part of you. You know, I feel like I look at the world in a certain positive light, not because I always did, but because I did so frequently and so often, and didn't feel like I had to hold on to it. That it became part of something that I have. A positive outlook. I don't hold on to a positive outlook. I have a positive outlook. And I feel like that's the important premise, to sort of not necessarily understanding yourself, but understanding what you need to do in order to, I guess, alter the definition of yourself. Because at the end of the day, I always feel like it's about breaking the habit of being yourself. Understanding that who you are right now, it doesn't have to be 100% based on who you were then, because you are subject to change. And you can be an agent for that, your own change, as long as you're present enough to realize what you're holding on to. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate all of you. This is the first video I'm making since I hit 500. So I'm definitely gonna have a stream out by the time this goes up, hopefully, and a podcast channel up by the time this goes up. So thank you. Keep being young, keep being great. Make sure you're taking care of yourself and filling yourself with the love you know you deserve.